This week's video is going to be a pretty short one. I just have something I wanted to get off my chest real quick. I've thought about this for a while now, and I wasn't really sure if I was going to if it was enough to warrant a video, but I figure what the hell it probably is. But you know, I talk photography with a lot of people, and I always end up asking, and the question always comes up in conversation. And I ask them, it's like, "Oh, are you a photographer?" And many times that they always answer the question, "No, I'm not a photographer. I'm not a pro or anything like that. I'm just a hobbyist, or I'm an enthusiast. I'm just an amateur, but I'm not very good." And I always thought that answer was a little, unfortunate a little bit. I think people really discount and don't give themselves enough credit for their ability to create photographs. And, you know, I always get a similar question too. You know, whether it's on YouTube or direct to my website or Instagram or wherever it is, I was like, "Hey, Mark, are you a professional photographer? Or is this just a hobby?" And I've always kind of thought both of those instances were a little odd, and you know, and I've been kind of noodling on this concept for a while now, and I really came up with, it's like there's really three things that always pop into my head about this, and you know, three reasons why you really don't need to be a pro to shoot great photographs. And the first one being, you know, the whole professional stigma just has to do with income, with the business of photography. It has absolutely no merit on a photographer's skill set. It does not speak to their quality of work, their body of work, their portfolio, nothing. It only means that they've wrapped a business around their love of photography. They generate income from photography. That's it. That's all you got to do to become a professional photographer. Some people say that 100% of your income has to come from photography in order to get the tag professional photographer. And others say that just the majority of your income has to come from photography to be a pro. But whatever it is, regardless what boat you're in, 100% or the majority of your income, either one has nothing to do with a photographer's actual skill set. It's just the business and marketing side of it. And that is it. The second point being, and actually before I move on to the second point, you know, when I get the question all the time to me, you know, "Mark, are you a pro? Or are you an amateur? Are you a hobbyist?" I know that these questions are not coming to me, and nothing against the people that ask these questions, but I know that people are not inquiring as to the majority of my income. Does it come from photography? They're not concerned with what channels I use to create my income. They're purely asking because if I say yes, Joe, I am a professional photographer, Joe will automatically think that I'm a pretty good photographer. He's a pro, he's gotta be good. Just like a pro boxer or a pro football player. You know, as soon as you hear pro or professional, they're the best of the best in the game. And a lot of things that's true. You know, if you're a pro football player, more than likely you are the best of the best. But just because you have the label you're a pro photographer absolutely does not mean you are the best of the best. I have seen so many amateur photographers out there where their work is way better than my work or any pro I've ever seen. So just because you're a pro does not mean that you're fantastic. And I know, like in the instance with the question from Joe, if I were to tell Joe that, "No, Joe, this is just a hobby of mine, I just like to do it and talk photography," he would automatically think, "Oh, okay." But instantly in his mind, in his subconscious, he would think that I was not quite as good because I'm not a pro. You know, and I used to think the same thing too, where, you know, just subconsciously, you automatically think that pros are better than amateurs, and it's just not the case with photography at all. Second point being, gear really doesn't matter. And I know everyone's going, "Oh my God, I hear that all the time. It's not true. Gear really does matter." But honestly, it's just not true. Granted, professional photographers will usually have better gear than an amateur or an enthusiast, mainly because they can just justify the cost more because they make income off of their gear. So they can constantly be upgrading their gear and getting the latest technology and advances in photography. But you also got to think about like the law of diminishing returns. So most amateurs, let's say they shoot with a $1,000 or $1,500 camera. The difference between a $100 camera and a $1,000 camera is huge. The difference between a $1,000 camera and a $2,000 camera, the $2,000 camera is going to be better, but it's not going to be a huge difference. And the difference between a $2,000 camera and a $4,000 camera, yep, $4,000 camera is gonna be better, but it's not gonna be a massive difference. Not like the $100 camera compared to the $1,000 camera. So if you think about the law of diminishing return, most amateurs and hobbyists, enthusiasts, whatever camera you're shooting with, it's going to be just fine to make incredible photographs. And I always think about this one instant, or one thing or thought that pops in my head. I've never one time in my life ever saw a photograph and I was like, God, that's gorgeous, that is beautiful, but oh, if it was only shot with a better camera. I've never said that, and I don't think I ever will. So whatever camera you're shooting with, more than likely is going to be just fine to create amazing artwork. Now, the third reason why you don't need to be a pro, and this is huge in my opinion, and this is where you are at a distinct disadvantage if you are a professional photographer. So if you're an amateur and you're a hobbyist and you're an enthusiast, listen up. You have a huge advantage because you are shooting purely for the love of the art. You are shooting only things that make you happy. You are only shooting scenes that feed your soul, that put a smile on your face, that you're passionate about. And that's a huge advantage over a professional photographer. Now, I'm not saying that professional photographers don't shoot what they love, they do. But it's something that I've noticed going from amateur photographer to professional photographer, and I've heard this from many, many pros over the years. And that's that, you know, being an amateur photographer is definitely more fun. And it's mainly because you're shooting for what you love and you're not shooting for a paycheck. You know, when you're an amateur photographer, a lot of us used to, you know, if maybe you are still an amateur photographer, maybe you're a pro now, but when you were an amateur, you could pick and choose what kind of jobs you went for. If it was something that you weren't really that passionate about, if you're not into shooting portraits and it was a portrait job offer, money didn't really matter. You weren't into it, you didn't want to do it. But when you're a professional photographer, I'm not saying you'll do whatever you know job offer is out there for money, but you look at things a little bit different. You got to think about, you know, you got to pay that mortgage, you got to pay your rent, you got to send the kids to college. So you end up doing a lot of photography that you might not be that passionate about. So if you're an amateur out there, just the fact that you get to shoot for the love of the art form is a massive advantage that you have over pro photographers out there. So, you know, and like I mentioned to kind of kick this video off, where a lot of people, they don't consider themselves photographers because they're not classified as a pro photographer. But if you're into photography and you like taking photographs and it's your hobby and it's your passion, you're a photographer. Somebody asks you if you're a photographer, yeah, I am a photographer. You don't have to say whether you're a pro photographer or you're an amateur photographer, because as we just discussed, that just has to do with whether or not you wrap the business around your love of photography. That's it. So you are a photographer. I'm a photographer. Anybody out there that's into it, you're a photographer as well. So I'll step off my soapbox now. That's what I wanted to get off my chest. Hope you got something out of the video, a little inspiration, if you will. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, if you could give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already. Next week, we'll get back to the regular scheduled program with tips and tricks and things like that. But I just wanted to say this today. So I hope you enjoyed it and appreciate you watching. I'll see you all next week. Bye.